We're going to visit a wetland close to the headwaters of the Goukou River in the vicinity of Riversdale in the Western Cape province of South Africa. Riversdale is marked A on this Google image. I'm going to show you an almost pristine wetland system which is dominated by a plant called palmite. More about it later. We'll first visit a site just below the upper reaches of the wetland, indicated on this image as B. The mountain range from which the Goukou River flows southwards across the coastal plain is called the Longaberg. The Goukou River reaches the southern Indian Ocean at a small coastal resort, Still Bay, marked as C. Now let's move in closer. B shows where we will make our first stop. Then we'll move on to D, where I'll show you what I can only describe at best as the site of some gross environmental negligence. Although on the other hand, bearing in mind our advanced understanding of wetland function in this current day and age, perhaps it's better described as a crime against the environment. E indicates the furthest extent of the wetland from the headwaters of the river. From there on down to the coast, the Goukou River is pretty well confined to a narrow channel. This is a beautiful pristine wetland, or relatively pristine wetland, at the head of the Goukou River, and essentially that wetland is overlain by palmite, which is a type of plant with long ribbon-like leaves, and when water comes down the river in flood, it floods over the entire area of that wetland, and the leaves protect the underlying peat from the flood. Down here we've got a structure that's been put in to remediate a head cut at the top end of the palmite wetland. I'm not sure if one can hear my voice over the water noise, but there's the original head cut digging deep into the palmite wetland, and the structure has been built by the Working for Wetlands program to remediate the head cut, and they put a wall across the head cut of gabions filled with stones, and then what you see down in front of us is a big stilling pond that takes the energy out of the water, and then the water flows through the lower wall, and you can see the palmite beyond that, and then flows down the channel into the wetland. So hopefully now the wetland will actually stabilize, and what we want now is for that channel to slowly refill and stabilize. There's the structure we were visiting earlier, and you can see it's very much on this side of the wetland. As Yapi was discussing earlier, it's now channeling the water down this side of the wetland, and by putting in a pipe across to the center of the wetland, they will eventually be able to rehydrate the center of that wetland. You have seen the relatively pristine state of the wetland in the upper catchment. You've also seen the large and very expensive gabion structure that Sandby's Working for Wetlands program has had to construct to remediate the head cut that was caused by a farmer digging trenches in the wetland to extract water some years ago. Let's move on downstream to where today's farmers have been putting the entire wetland at risk, at a point where a road unfortunately crosses the wetland. This is at the point marked D on this image. Apparently after a severe flood in 2007, the river channel moved from close to the southern bank of the wetland to the northern bank. Subsequently, a trench marked 3 has been dug across the wetland with a digger loader. The trench runs from the northern side of the river at point 1 to the southern side of the river at point 2, where water is extracted through a sluice into a local irrigation canal at point 4. Digging a trench through the overlaying palmite and underlying peat has put the entire wetland at risk of severe erosion, and small head cuts have already started developing.
Around that opposite side, also been there since then. It's got a sluice gauge, but what happened with the flood of 2007, there was quite a big flood that came through here, and it damaged the road quite badly. And obviously it also caused a slight change in the diversion to the channel. So what they did is they came in with a digger loader and they made a nice little trench here, feeding directly into the water scheme, and they've cut it off to the rest of the system. So there's really almost no water going into that, except here maybe now, but no flows, nothing. Subsequently, you've got these little incisions going in there. They've grown since we've first been here, and with every high flow event they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's putting the whole of the intake piece of wetland upstream into danger. So this is quite a big threat. You can do something here right now, very low key, stabilize it. But first I think we also need to get water affairs on board to solve the problem there as well. They also need to play a part here. It can't come from just one side. And obviously your peat is the water table has dropped for almost a meter now. Peat is drying out. It's bad. Anything you want to add?
I just can't understand how you can do this without thinking. That you can cut the entire water supply to the rest of the system. And these head cuts is really a problem. This is not going to stop. It's already a lot worse than last time. This is going to migrate. It's going to move up. You can lose this entire system that we just had a look at. This entire all along around the road, around the corner. These things start incising fast. You can lose this.
Technical reports that were written about it.
No,
and I know Cape Nature has raised the issue with I'm not sure which authority, I think with Water Affairs.
No.
Water Affairs is not going to prosecute themselves since they were involved. Cape Nature is not allowed to prosecute Water Affairs, so nothing happens. So where does that leave? Sandy won't get involved, I guess. Well, but they can't act against the state organ.
We won't get involved with the legal side, but we need to get involved with this. Is our mandate.
Well, I think there's a couple of things here. There's fixing the problem. There's preventing future problems similar, and it's getting redress from environmental criminals. And no one wants to do the latter.
And supplying that lower area with water. All of this water is now going to irrigation tanks. Only that little bit of water that's now still keeping the system.
You know what it's going to cost you?
Yes.
$1.5 million. So who's paying for that? Why should we pay as state payers when you know who the guilty parties are?
Any other ideas? What do we do here?
This is the area where the road crosses the Goukou River, or shall we say Goukou River Wetland, and we have an incipient head cut forming here, which is going to cut back into the river. And apparently this trench was dug with the blessing of Water Affairs, allegedly, so that farmers can extract water from this wetland. Unfortunately, it's doing an amazing amount of damage to the wetland, and we're at risk of these small head cuts as they are now developing into major head cuts over the next 2 or 3 years, and putting us in a situation where we're going to have to spend millions to rehabilitate this wetland. It's really important to get stuck in and start some rehabilitation as soon as possible. That's where we were standing just now, where the vehicles are parked. And there's the wetland, and a trench has been dug along the roadway, all in front of the wetland, which has dropped the level of the water in the wetland and is draining the wetland quite dramatically And you can see the channel here ahead where the water's being diverted around, and then over the road ahead of us. There's the water over the road ahead of us. And over here you can see the water inlet where the farmers are being authorized to take water out of the wetland. It will cost the taxpayer, through the Working for Wetlands program, many millions of rands to stabilize this trench and prevent further damage to the wetland upstream. Now here the water is being diverted down to the sluice gate and being extracted from the wetland down that channel. And in fact there's only a minimal amount of water being allowed down this channel to keep the remainder of the wetland downstream wet. You can see there's still a substantial bit of wetland below that last road trench that needs to be kept wet. Point D is where the trench has been dug across the wetland. This image shows that there's a very significant length of wetland below the extraction, right down to point E, which needs to be kept wet to keep the palmite alive, prevent degradation, and retain the functionality of the entire system. You can see all the black wattle in the catchment here, and coming down into the magnificent palmite wetland which overlies deep peat. And working on wetlands has been ring barking the wattles to kill the ones that are actually in the wetland. And this is the wetland that absorbs water and would mitigate floods downstream through Riversdale and Still Bay. It's up to all the organs of state involved in the matter to urgently put measures in place to remedy the situation. Loss of this very important wetland will result in future flood damage downstream that will be far more costly than the urgent short-term remediation measures which are required today.